let's start off. So literal equations again, showing your work is important so that you don't get lost. Okay? But let's start off, let's build our confidence. If I gave you the problem, let's do 3x minus 8 equals 13. So let's go simple. Let's go back to where we're comfortable. This is a two-step equation. Do you agree? Now, I get it. Most of you don't need to show your work to solve this problem, but for the sake of humoring Mrs. Long, we would draw a line down the equal sign. I mean, let's go real old school. We're going to add 8 because that's my constant, right? And we'd have 3x equals 21. Do you agree?
Yes.
And then we'd divide by 3, and you'd say it equals 7. And, oops, wrong line. Coefficient. Right, so we still have these steps that we follow. Now here's the part that is the part that I get lots of times. You're not even at this point in algebra showing these steps, because what you're doing is you're going to say, oh, Mrs. Long, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to do 13 plus 8, and then I'm going to divide it by 3. Do you agree?
Whoa.
I mean, that's what you did to this problem. You did 13 plus 8, got 21, and then you divided by 3, and you got 7, correct? I mean, that's what you did. So you said, oh, Mrs. Long, x is going to equal 13 plus 8 divided by 3, right? Because 13 plus 8 divided by 3.
I like makes the problem 10 times shorter.
Right, and I get it. Like, that's the part that we like about it, right?
Yeah.
So again, let's do one more. If we had 10 minus 2x equals 20. Again, showing every single step. I get it. You don't need to for most of you, because this is where we do the mental part, right? But if you were showing all of that work, you would say minus 10. And you'd have negative 2x equals 10. And then you'd divide by negative 2. And you'd get x equals negative 5, right? And again, most of you in your heads, right, without writing out the steps, you knew that the answer was going to be 20 minus 10 divided by negative 2, correct? So you knew that x was going to equal, well, I'm going to do the inverse, minus 10, so 20 minus 10, and then I'm going to divide by negative 2, divided by negative 2. Do you agree?
Yes.
We're going to still do that, except it's going to look different. So here's what I mean by that. Instead of the problem saying 3x minus 8 equals 13, what if my problem said mx minus y equals 13?
You pretty darn confused.
And if I said solve for x, meaning I want x by itself. Well, I'm still going to do the same thing. Because if I equate values, right, if I want x, so I have to keep the variable x, but if I gave like this the number 3, and I gave this the number 8, could I solve it? Yeah. What I would do, this is my constant, right? How do I know that y is my constant? Because it's by itself, right? So I'd add y making it disappear, leaving me with mx equals, do you know what 13 plus y is?
13 y.
13 plus y, right? I can't combine them
Why can't you?
because they're not like terms. If it was 13y plus 1y, I could put them together, but they're not like terms. All right, so is x by itself yet? No, I still have this m with it, right? Which is divide by m. They disappear, and my solution is x equals 13 plus y over m. And I just solved for x. Just like up here, I solved for x. Except up here, I had like terms. I had numbers that I could combine. Down here, I don't have like terms, so I cannot combine them. Again, look. Up here, I did 13 plus 8 first, because minus 8 was my constant, and the opposite of minus 8 was plus 8. I did 13 plus 8. Well, down here, instead of the number 8, I have the variable y. But I'm still going to do the same thing. 13 plus y, well, I don't know what that is, so I'm just going to leave it 13 plus y. Up here, I was able to do 13 plus 8 to get 21, and then I'm dividing by 3. Well, here, I still have to divide. I'm just dividing by a variable, dividing by m. And I can't do it because they're all variables. So I'm done. I can't put them together. So here are my ideas for you. This is what I recommend. I recommend that you circle or highlight the variable you're solving for. Because that helps you know that that needs to stay still. Circle or highlight the variable you're solving for. That tells me that it needs to stay still. You need to ask yourself, do I need to simplify? Maybe you don't. But you have to check. Are there parentheses? Do I have to apply the distributive property? The new part in here on simplify is move the denominator. There might be a denominator, and we'll talk about that. We'll do a few examples with that. Because a denominator really means division. Do you agree? I mean, isn't a fraction the same thing as a division problem? It's just not simplified into a decimal. So if there's a denominator, we have to move that first. We have to multiply by the denominator. And then, same old, move the constant. I'm going to call it a constant. It's not really a constant because a constant is a number, and we're probably going to have a variable. And then we're going to move the coefficient. So, I don't want to make you sound like a crazy person, but it also really helps to read the problem out loud so that you're saying the operations so that it's in your head so you can do the inverse. Because sometimes just looking at it, it's a little overwhelming. Go ahead. It's kind of like the trick to understanding Shakespeare is that you should read Shakespeare out loud because it lets you slow down and process while you're reading it. the trick to doing these problems sometimes is to just read it out loud so that you know what operations you're doing. There will come a time where you do not have to talk yourself out loud through the problems. I promise.
Oh, that's good. Is that in calculus?
Yeah.
See, I knew it.
All right, so let's practice. All right. Let's start off easy. Ready?
I heard yes. Is it practice or homework?
X plus Y equals Z. And we're going to solve for Y. I mean, if you're going to know that it's a Z, do it. X plus Y equals Z. And I want to solve for Y. Meaning I want the Y to be alone. So I have to ask myself, what's on the same side as the Y? What do I need to move away so that the Y will be alone? What's with it, Henry? X. I have to move that X, correct? I want Y alone, so that means I have to move the X. And I'm going to subtract X, because that's the opposite. And now those canceled out. And I'm left with Y equals. Now here's the trick. We didn't talk about this in the other one. How should you always write your variables? Do you know?
Oh, the first one, the first one in the alphabet comes first. Alphabetical order.
Variables in A, B, C order. So, I get it. You could write Z minus X. Z minus X is a correct answer, but what's the best answer?
Negative X plus C.
Negative X plus C. And we're done. Let's try another one. Yes.
Well, all of the same on homework just be one step equation.
No, there's going to be a few that require simplifying first. 2, I think. All right, try this one. AB equals C. And to save myself a little bit of space, I'm going to say solve for A. So I'm going to highlight it just because it helps my brain. It's a visual cue. So AB equals C. Now, if you look at that and you're like, what? I could say A times B equals C, and that may help us recognize what we need to do. Because I want A to stay by itself. I want A to be alone. Meaning, what do I have to move? B. And I'm going to move B, because it has to go from one side of the equal sign to the other side of the equal sign, using inverse operations. And the opposite operation would be division. Canceling out. And you're left with A equals, and I have to leave it, C divided by B. You cannot rewrite division problems, correct? There is no commutative property of division. The order of division matters, so we have to keep it C divided by B. All right, so those are one-steppers. Let's try a two-step. 3x minus 4y equals 11. And let's solve for x. So, two-step, right? I mean, this is a two-step equation. Do you agree?
Yes.
There's a plus sign, there's multiplication. So I don't need to simplify it. There's nothing to do. Change colors so that we can see what's going on. There's nothing to do. So if I look at my notes, my steps that I wrote, I said circle or highlight it. Simplify it. I don't need to simplify. So step 3 is move the constant. And the constant is in quotation marks, right? Looking at x, is there a coefficient? Right here. So what would be considered the quote-unquote constant? What's being added or subtracted to this x, Jaden? 4y. It says minus 4y. That's a term. That can't be split up, right? I mean, I could split it up, but that's a lot of work. I can move this whole thing because it's a plus or a minus. This is my constant. It's not really a constant. I get that. But it's the plus or minus value. So I'm going to put plus 4y and plus 4y. These cancel out. And I'm left with 3x equals 11 plus 4y. Do you know what 11 plus 4y is? I don't. Right? It's 11 plus 4y.
Wow, that's crazy.
Because I can't put them together because they're not like terms. Now I will also tell you this. Variables should be in ABC order. And variables come C-O-M-E first. So instead of writing 11 plus 4y, I want to write 3x equals 4y plus 11. You should put your variables first. Now I get it. This is the beginning. These are new things. Both of these are the same. Do you agree that both of those are the same?
Yes.
What property tells me they're both the same? The commutative property of addition. They're both the same. This guy's better. Am I done? Is y by, or is x by itself? No, I have one more step. I'm going to divide by 3. I'm going to divide by 3. So x equals, x is now successfully by itself. And do you know what 4y plus 11 divided by 3 is?
No.
Sure don't. Let's try this one. 2 times x minus 3t equals 14. And let's solve for t. All right, so step number 1, identify what we're solving for. We're solving for t. I highlighted it. You could circle it. You could draw an arrow at it. I don't know. Step number 2. Oh, we do have to do this one, don't we? Step number 2 that I wrote down on your notes. What'd you write down? Do I need to simplify? Meaning, are there parentheses or a denominator? And I look at this, and yeah, there are parentheses, so I'm going to have to distribute. 2x minus 6t equals 14. All right, so I simplified it. That was a little bit easier. All right, I'm solving for t, correct? So after I simplify, I look and I see, is there a quote-unquote constant? The constant is the 2x, right? Because the coefficient is negative 6. So my addition, my lonely, not touching the variable, is 2x. So how do you move that 2x? Minus 2x. Negative 6t equals, do you know what 14 minus 2x is? I don't. Could you write 14 minus 2x? Yes, it would be right. However, we want to remember that variables come first. So I'm going to choose to write it negative 2x plus 14. Is x alone yet? T. Is t alone yet? Not yet. Divide by negative 6, because that's my coefficient. Divide by negative 6. T equals, do you know what negative 2x plus 14 divided by negative 6 is? I don't either. Negative 2x plus 14 divided by negative 6. And that's it. So you have to be okay with your answer not being 7. Your answer is the problem rewritten. Last one, and then you can start your homework. 4 minus 3b divided by 19. I mean, why not, right? Equals J. And we're going to solve for B. Solve for J.
And then we don't have to do anything.
We're going to solve for J. All right, so identify what we're solving for. I did it. Step 2, do we need to simplify?
Are we solving for G or for J? Wait, J.
Oh,
Wait.
God, you guys are the worst.
Are we solving for J or for B? B. Okay, thank you.
Solve for B.
I'm so confused.
We wouldn't have to do anything.
Okay, so we have identified, we're solving for B. Step 2, simplify. What does it say next to step 2? Does it have a denominator?
Yes.
So I have to move my denominator. This is one of those that you have to move your denominator because we can't do inverse. We can't do our 2-step equation with this denominator here. So I'm going to move my denominator. And we talked about earlier how a denominator is really just a division problem. Do you agree?
Yes.
So I'm going to multiply by 19. And I'm going to multiply by 19. Which means that my denominator is now gone. Because my denominator was 19, meaning that was a problem divided by 19. So I'm going to do the inverse, which is multiply, and it disappears. So on the left side, I'm now left with 4 minus 3b equals what? J times 19, which you can write as 19j, right? It becomes its coefficient. All right, I'm still solving for b. After you simplified, it says move your constant. What's the constant in this problem? Minus 4, minus 4. negative 3b equals, do you know what 19j minus 4 is?
No.
Neither do I. And then I'm going to divide by negative 3, divide by negative 3. So b equals, do you know what 19j minus 4 divided by negative 3 is?
No.
Neither do I.
I wish.
19j minus 4 divided by negative 3.